I wanted to start off with your story. I saw you were the youngest of seven. Father passed away very early on in your life. So I want to ask you about what your core memories are of your childhood. What stands out to you, and anything that you think of as a gift that you early on noticed when you were a kid.
Yeah, thank you, Sarthak, for having me on your podcast. Great to be here. Excited to talk to young people of your generation. That's what gets me super excited. And going back to my own childhood, okay? So, again, depends on each person when you get those early childhood memories. Is it age 2? Is it age 5? I quite don't know where that was, but I do have memories of time spent with my father when I was young, memories like getting lost on Marina Beach in Chennai. And somehow I had the gift of gab at that age. Probably I was 4 or 5 to actually give people the address of my house and who my parents were. I'm like, go. So maybe I did have some gift of at least remembering addresses. Okay. When I was really young. So yeah, I do have very positive, pleasant memories of family life, being the youngest of 7 and being very late born. So I was not competitive with any of my siblings. They all treated me like a bacha, right? So very pleasant memories. Of course, the jarring one was when I lost my father when I was only 10. And that was a big, rude shock for me and for the family itself. And
Do you
and
remember that?
so, yeah, I remember that he was one of 2 people in life that I've seen someone taking the last breath. And
Wow.
that's not something I would only see in movies, but in real life to experience my father dying before my own eyes. That's something you can never forget. It's etched in my brain, right?
Yeah.
And so that was a big shock, but also it was a privilege to actually see someone who's my role model pass away, in front of you. So it was both somewhat good in a sense that I actually saw him and I was there, but it was also horrible.
D- did you have any other father figures in your life at that time?
I did not really have anyone at that time. My mother is my hero. I mean, can you imagine kind of
Right.
losing her husband, trying to manage a household with virtually no income and being able to do this? I can't believe how she did it. She was not just CEO of our house, but took over as CEO in a sense, but really someone who I owe everything in my life to.
I've been recently reading the an abridged version of the Gita for the first time, and one of the things that I don't know why I never thought of it before, but this whole setting of the Gita is a family battle that's happening, and it's between brothers, brothers fighting against each other, and the dad on one side, um, who thinks that these set of brothers should be getting something versus the other, and it made me think about how the most competitive thing that happens across history is what happens within the family and all these family dynamics. So I'm very curious how your family dynamics after losing your dad changed, or what came out. Did people take more responsibility as a result of it? Your mom, of course, was there, but how did the siblings change, and how did your relationship change with your family?
Yeah, the good news, in a sense, I guess, or bad news, we didn't have that much money. So there was no quibbling about who gets the money or anything like that. Okay. So that was good that we didn't have much money to fight about. So there was no fighting.
Hmm.
My mother just took control. And keep in mind, a lot of my siblings are much older than me, so they had left the house, they were married and such. So there were only 2 other siblings who were with us at that time. So it was much smaller in terms of the dynamic. And my mother took charge. She really
Hmm.
took charge. And since we were all younger, there wasn't anyone ready to jump in at that time. So really, it was up to her, man. I tell you, kudos to
Hmm.
someone like her to have the strength, the determination, and the skills that she
Hmm.
brought to bear to actually run the house and provide for us at that critical juncture and be very supportive.
I can't imagine. It's a
Yeah.
very hard thing to imagine with those many kids. I mean, some of them are
Yeah.
much older, but at the same time, just figuring all that out. Um, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about, ho- you've mentioned in some book that you've been quoted in about your background, being a Tamil Brahmin family, and it seems like education was always a very important thing in that. Do you think education was the foundation for what your life became, or could you have gotten to where you had without the traditional way that you got educated?
I was a wanderer in my education, okay? I did
Hmm.
not, and this would be useful to your viewers. I did not find my purpose for a long, long, long time, okay? So just to give you my education, I did my bachelor's in commerce and accounting, hated accounting. Then I thought a lot of people in my family were lawyers. So they said, hey, be a lawyer, go to law school. I went to law school. I hated law school. Okay. Then my older brother was living in the US says, hey, you're wandering around. Why don't you come here and do an MBA? Okay. So I came to the US to do an MBA. Initially, I started in marketing and then I changed to operations management. I did everything possible and got out with an MBA. And then I ended up in a manufacturing company. Okay. So really I wandered around life trying to figure out where I fit in, what kind of job role I took, and what my purpose was. And even
Hmm.
when I, was in this manufacturing company, there was an incident you might have heard where this is like the movies. You go to someone and you're talking to them, telling them your background, and they go, "Why the hell are you here in a dead end job? You should be in Silicon Valley, right?" There was an old movie like that. Your generation may have never seen called The Graduate.
Hmm.
Old movie where an uncle of this guy takes him aside and says, Benjamin, plastics.
Hmm.
You should get into plastics. This is a movie in the 50s or 60s, right?
Okay.
So my plastics moment was this consultant telling me, you should go to Silicon Valley.
At this
That
point,
changed
at
everything.
this point, you were in Houston, I believe.
I was in Houston, and that advice, there were two things to it: getting the advice. A lot of us
Hmm.
give free advice and get free advice. We never act on the advice. And
Hmm.
that's a clear lesson for your viewers. If
Hmm.
you take advice, try to act on it if you think it's good.
Hmm.
Most of us will think it's good and never act on it. But this was one of the few times I acted on the advice.
I was about to ask you, as you mentioned, one of the few times, it seems like as you were exploring, you were kind of going by your innate curiosity and trying to figure out what you want to do. Um, what made you listen to this advice over others? How do you choose what to listen to?
This time I was given, after the job in Houston, I took time off.
Hmm.
And this is something I urge young people to do as well is, in the traditional Indian system, you don't take a gap year, you don't take time off, you don't go pursue a passion and come back to your job. So this is one thing I did, was to actually take some time off after my first job, to do backpacking in Europe, go to India and spend 3 months wandering around India, spending time with family and others. And that process was what resulted in me thinking, hey, should I go back to Houston or do I do something else? So getting some space and time is helpful, but I'm also a risk taker. So this was an interesting thing when he says, get out and go to Silicon Valley. I'm like thinking immediately, where is Silicon Valley, right? This is 1982. How do you find
Right.
out? You're in India and you're here, or in the US, 1,500 miles away, and you go, where the heck is Silicon Valley? How do you even find out? So you got to have the curiosity, and then you got to have the skills to find out where the heck it is. There's no LinkedIn, no Facebook, none of that stuff, right? No newspapers on the internet, nothing.
That's incredible. I mean, I I am curious because when you said when you moved to Silicon Valley, you were the only Indian you said in the startup that you had joined at the company you were around. And so much of what we think is possible, a lot of time it comes from just seeing someone looking even similar to us or somewhere close to us doing something and going like, wow, this is possible. It's like the whole 4 minute mile situation where it wasn't broken for
Yeah.
years and then one guy did that. So when there was nothing, no one around you that looked like you, was there anything you set up as a benchmark to what you can do and what are possibilities? Or where does that come from, that drive?
Yeah. So, it started with a phone call. I'd sent a bunch of, I did it the old fashioned way, right? Try to find out a list of companies in Silicon Valley.
Hmm.
So that itself was enormous effort on my part. I had to go to libraries, and your generation would not know what a microfiche is. But
Hmm.
microfiche was one where they archived old documents on pieces of transparent plastic. And you put that through a machine and it projected the data, right?
Wow.
So I had to go through reams of paper, San Francisco Chronicle, San Jose Mercury News, all these paper to find out who the companies were that were hiring. And then I had to pay a typist in those days
Hmm.
to type my resume and
Hmm.
then type the envelope and put stamps on it and send it out. Okay. That's how I started. I didn't know anybody in Silicon Valley, knew zero. So my persistence paid off by sending dozens of these resumes. And one person called me on the phone, and the interview was on the phone. So I
Hmm.
guess that was good because I was reasonable sounding on the phone. They couldn't see who they knew my name was weird, but they
Hmm.
didn't know how I looked and how. And so that phone interview changed everything. Where he said, my boss then said, I'll fly you out to California and do the final interview. So I somehow made it from the phone interview to being flown out to California. And then I talked my way into a job. Keep in mind, I was not a coder. I'd never done coding in my life.
Hmm.
I was a user of computer systems,
Hmm.
user of software and applications, but I never coded. But I
Hmm.
somehow had the skill set to talk my way into this job of being the quality assurance analyst in this startup.
Can I ask you more about this side of it, the talking your way out into situations and out of situations?
Yeah.
When you think back on where you get that, because some of it might have been learned, but some of it might be innate to you. How what is like sales 101 or conversations 101 for people that want to get good at talking to people and getting into situations and opportunities that they want to? What have you
Yeah, I
learned?
think early on, as a child, I was a very quiet child.
Hmm.
Even and I had fear of public speaking and stuff. So I was not one who would be forthcoming. So I guess I turned out to be a good listener, which is a good skill to have that most of us don't have. And even today, I've lost some of that learning skills, listening skills, right?
Hmm.
So I think I listened and observed a lot. And I think that helped me in the process of having accumulated a lot of that. And some of it is innate. And that was one. And the second thing was in my first job in Houston was when I overcame the fear of public speaking. So if I'd not overcome that, I would have had a much harder time. So that's another piece of advice to your viewers is become good public speakers, whether it's one-on-one speaking or speaking to a large audience. A lot of us are scared. I was scared. I would be nervous. I would be
Hmm.
sweating. My hands would be trembling even if there were more than two people I had to present to.
Hmm.
Okay. And the way I overcame that was a simple thing. One of the people said, you know what? I'll record you, using an old fashioned video recorder. He said, say something about something for 2, 3 minutes. Recorded me. And then when I looked at the video, I was not scared. I was fine externally. It was all
Hmm.
mental.
Hmm.
You're scared
This,
inside.
it's more about the expectation of what is about to happen than what actually happens.
Right. And so I think that fear I was able to
Hmm.
overcome in my first job, which
Hmm.
also led to me being much more extroverted that you think
Hmm.
I am now talking to you. I was not
Hmm.
this way when I was 20.
Wow.
Okay.
And
So I think
how much? Go ahead. Sorry.
overcoming the fear,
Hmm.
any fear you have, flying, public speaking, whatever be it, if you can
Hmm.
overcome it, it helps you.
What's a fear that you're still trying to overcome?
What's the fear? I don't know, man. I haven't thought through. I haven't. It's a good question. Maybe I'll come back to you later. But I
Yeah,
haven't.
yeah, no.
Yeah,
No, it just came to me as you
yeah,
were
yeah, yeah.
talking because I also on
I
this
would say
topic.
fear of tango dancing. I don't know if I can do the tango, man. I don't know. I'm not really good on the dance floor, and
Okay.
so I'm a little inhibited when I get out on a dance floor. So maybe I should learn something. Fear of dancing.
I have two left feet as well, so I need to learn that stuff too. I wanted to ask you, because as you were talking, it reminded me of a conversation I was having with. I was recently in Bangalore, I was telling you, and I met a few folks that are really trying to get multiple interdisciplinary folks in one place. As you've talked about as well, in India, a lot of that community has been siloed. Tech people talk to tech people, politicians talk to politicians, and blah blah. So these guys are really trying to bring interdisciplinary communities, folks from all different backgrounds together. And I was like, they're so passionate about getting all these different groups together. And so we went into a conversation about why they care so much about all these varieties of people coming in one place. And there were three of these folks, and they all kind of came to the conclusion that a lot of times in their own lives, they have not been heard, and they feel like they haven't been understood, and there's this burning desire within them to feel understood, and if they can make other people from different backgrounds connect and make something happen, they feel like they're sort of seeing that in real time, the feeling of being understood and coming from different backgrounds and perspectives. Do you resonate with that as a reason for making a community? What do you think about that?
Absolutely. I think that's imperative, right? And the founder of TED, Chris Anderson,
Hmm.
talks about it eloquently. He said, you know, let's say I want to learn golf.
Hmm.
So, and I want to have a dinner to learn about golf and talk to friends. I would call Tiger Woods. I would call Vijay Singh. I would call, all the leading golfers to dinner. I'd have a great conversation on golf. So his whole topic was, objective was don't do that. You would never learn much. He said, if you want to learn about golf, you would
Hmm.
call one good golfer, let's say Vijay Singh. Then I
Hmm.
would call the groundskeeper of the Masters tournament. I would call a physicist who had learned about aerodynamics.
Hmm.
And I would call the weatherman, a weather person, to learn about
Wow.
dew and rain and mist and snow. They would give me a comprehensive look at how to play golf because one guy would teach me how to play golf, but the groundskeeper at the golf course will say, look at the thickness of the grass and you have to hit the shot the right way. And the weatherman will say, check for dew temperature and temperatures, and then you'd get a certain kind of thing. So I'm a big believer in a very diverse set of people to talk about a particular topic.
Hmm.
You will get a 360-degree perspective on everything when you do that than getting 10 AI guys together to talk about AI. Okay. That would be a
Yeah.
boring conversation.
I Have you read the book Range?
Yeah. Yes.
It talks a lot about this, and it gives really like live examples of people across domains that have gotten really good at something, have typically gotten really good. He talks about Tiger Woods as well, have gotten really good by still looking at multiple fields
Yes.
across different fields and applying that. So the creativity of applying it your own game, but coming at it from different games, I think is a very interesting skill. And I don't know how you can teach. How do you teach that as a skill? Like to how to apply outside of your own, discipline or specialization.
That's a tough one. I mean, this
Mm,
is not something you can just create a dinner or a meetup just to talk to
right,
these people, right? You have to
right.
proactively say, let me go find people who are in that universe, but not in my specific skill set. So
Mm.
it's something you have to learn, a discipline you have to create. It's not something you can magically do, but it's something you got to really put effort into.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you a little bit about, just because I'm curious, about your journey post making enough. When you felt like you had made enough financially, let's just say, how what has changed in your fuel? Was there a fuel to be financially free in the beginning, and then what came post it? Like what started happening in your life post it?
Yeah. So I think for me, that was a tough fight. How much
Mm,
is enough?
mm,
How much is enough is tough because you're comparing numbers and you're comparing those numbers to your peer group and you're
mm,
comparing your numbers to billionaires. So
mm,
when you do that, you'll never stop because you have a million. Oh, this guy has five. You have five. This guy has 10, and so on and so forth. So you can never do that. In my case, I wanted to have a family at that time.
mm,
And because my previous jobs are all traveling jobs as chief marketing officer of different companies, I had to get on a plane all the time. And the previous year, I had flown 300,000 miles. Just
wow.
think of that, 12 times around the world in 1 year. Okay. And that got me a little bit tired. That
Mm,
meant I didn't spend much time with my wife because I was
mm,
always on the road. That meant we couldn't plan to have a family. And I started thinking about those issues. And that's when I made the decision maybe I jump off that train, if you will, of doing it
that
and doing
plane.
something. Yeah, or plane.
Yeah.
Yeah, jump off the plane with no parachute. Just jump and then figure out what to do. Because I left millions of dollars of stock options on the table. Okay. and and said, okay, I'm going to have a family. And why family, you ask? That's because I
Mm,
went back when my dad died. I was 10. I said, if I'm going to have kids, I hope my kids will keep me longer than 10, right? And
mm,
that was what motivated me to do this, to start a family. So I jumped off to start the family. And then I said, I need to kind of be more of a stay at home dad because of what had happened to me. I said, I got to be close to my kids. So I got to
mm,
take them to school. I got to keep up with them on a day-to-day basis and not be out of town. And so that's change is what made me also think about the goal of money. And I said, at that time I had a good exit with the company I was with. So I said, oh, that's good enough. But
mm,
obviously, it's not easy to say that's good enough
mm,
because you always aspire to do more and do things, right? And so I created a different lifestyle for myself where I became an angel investor before the term was coined, right?
mm,
And so I started investing and helping companies where I didn't need an office. My office still, where I'm talking to you now, is in my house.
mm.
Okay, it's on the third floor of my house. I just walk up here. It's my office. So I put
And when did
together
this become your
that.
office? How long have you been remotely working like this?
I've been remotely working since 1996, 30 years. I've not had an office or an executive assistant in 30 years.
Oh wow, not no assistant as well.
That's why when you email me,
Yeah.
I did everything myself.
And
So
and why is that? Why is that? Is there a particular reason for that, or?
I want to keep my life simple.
Hmm.
Simplicity. So if I want to tune out, I just don't respond to emails.
Fair
So
enough.
keep life simple. No office expenses. No personal assistant. And that's how it started. Became an angel investor. Started helping companies. But really, what changed my life about money was when I started my first network
Hmm.
called Enterprise. So I said, I tremendous contacts and connections in the tech space, especially in the B2B space. So I said, I should bring all these people together because my secretary, when I left my last job, gave me all my business cards, my calling cards, and there were 4 binders,
Wow.
okay, of calling cards, 1,000 in each binder. I had
Wow.
4,000 people I had met so far in my tech life that I had their cards. So I bring this home and I'm like, what the heck do I do with these cards? And then I started talking to people. They said, hey, you got to keep in touch with your network if you want to be an angel investor and you want to do this and that. And there was no, like I said, LinkedIn or anything at that time. So I said, and people said, oh, you got to start a conference. And I'd done a lot of conferences as chief marketing officer, user group
Hmm.
conferences, prospect conferences. So I said, oh, that's a great idea. Let me start a conference. So I decided to start a conference for CEOs. Okay, because at that time, this was the dot-com bubble. For those of your viewers who don't know what that is, this was everybody went to conferences, everybody had an event, everybody threw money at everything. Okay. So I said, I'll do that. I'll create a conference and I'll charge $10,000 for everyone to attend. Because that was the going rate in Silicon Valley at the time, 5 grand, 10 grand. And I said, okay, great. I paid for the hotel, I booked everything. I sent out invitations. In those days, there were emails and faxes, uh, and nobody signed up. And I was
Wow.
going, oh shit, sorry. Paid all this money. I want to make a bunch more money by having this conference, right? I said, 100 people, $10,000 each, $1,000,000. I'll spend maybe 300,000 on the event. I'll make $700,000 of money, right? And nobody signed up. So I'm sitting there
What?
going, what the heck do I do? And that's when I said, why don't I make this a charitable conference?
Hmm.
I said, so I quickly changed the email I sent to this is a nonprofit event where all the profits of the conference would go to nonprofits that all the attendees will decide. We'll have a
Hmm.
poll, you guys decide, and we'll give away the money. That switch happened, and 100 people immediately signed up. Okay.
Can I ask you one thing here? What was the insight for you to make that switch to charity?
Because that's when I felt I really didn't need the money.
Hmm.
I had enough money from my exit.
Hmm.
I hadn't made any money. I'm like, why do I need to make the money? It's just a thought.
Hmm.
I said, let me do it for free. So I put in 3 months of effort for free, did the conference, and it was the most gratifying thing I did because I could go ask people for $10,000, right?
Yeah.
And I say, hey, it's not for me, man. It's for a charity, and you guys are going to decide who you give the surplus to. So
Hmm.
everybody was engaged. And that's when I found so much gratification on what I did. And that's why I call that I became an accidental philanthropist.
I want to. There's so many things you've said right now that have that like there's connection points to so many of them. So, one of the things I want to ask you about philanthropy is, and by the way, there's a funny story on this twist that you just made, um, from a very recent thing that happened about 6 months ago. I don't know if you've been following one of these creators. He's a businessman, but he turned into a YouTube creator as well. His name's Alex Hormozy. And he had this launch for the third book in a series that he has, and it broke the Guinness World Record for the most sales within a 24-hour period. It was like 3 million copies or something. But he said that the single thing that they did that led them for all the people that were on call to instantly buy within that 1 day time period was not ever say the word sell, and they only said the word donating to other folks. So they packaged it in a way where you were going to buy 200 books, as the person on the call was a business owner that was buying 200 books to donate to other entrepreneurs in their circle. And that's the wording that he used across the entirety of that call, that donation aspect. So you just feel like you're actually passing this on, giving it to someone else. So even from a linguistic perspective, I feel
Yeah,
like it has its benefits.
absolutely. I mean, and that's why I said I was sold out. I had 100 people. Okay. And before the old business model, I had zero.
Hmm. Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Were you gonna say something?
No, that's when I started changing a little bit of my mind on money. I mean, we're
Hmm.
all not totally free of that. Even
Hmm.
today, some greed and some of that comes into my mind like, oh
Hmm.
man, I could only invest in this company, or if I could only do
Hmm.
that, I would have made more. It's
Hmm.
very, very hard. And this I will admit, for any of us to walk away from money completely, because we have so much creature comforts, we have so many aspirations, we see so many YouTube and Instagram stuff and TikTok. It just kind of gets us into that consumption mindset. And for consumption, you need money.
Hmm. Have you gotten to see, okay, maybe impact is something that is a little bit more powerful as a fuel, as you just described with these events you started throwing and the conferences. But is there something else that gives you more fulfillment than um, money? Or is money fulfilling at some level?
Money is good to kind of be able to do things, right? It's
Okay.
not never fulfilling, but
Hmm.
what I did with my enterprise CEO retreat
Hmm.
was over 15 years of doing it. We directly gave away 2.5 million to nonprofits. And
Wow.
the attendees, we would bring the CEOs of these nonprofits to mingle with the attendees. They got much more money from them. Some of them joined the boards, advisory boards, gave CSR money. That impact was about 25 million.
Wow.
So to see how these 15 events that I did for three
Hmm.
days each resulted in over $25 million of direct impact to a bunch of nonprofits, that
Wow.
really is what gratifies me.
Hmm.
Uh, and I gave 3 months of my time every year to do that, to put the whole thing together, to organize it. But that I thought was pretty good return, 25 million for 15 years of 3 months, it's not
Yeah.
bad. Yeah.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a little bit more on philanthropy. What do you see are current problems in the philanthropy model, so to say? And I've come across a lot of different models between the US and India, on how people use money to effectively distribute it and allocate it. In the end, it's like a fund manager problem at the core of it as
Yeah.
well. But what have you seen have has been core issues in philanthropy as a model?
Couple of things, right? India,
Mm.
a lot of it goes to tax laws, by the way. So you're dealing with
Right.
large sums of money. So in the US, for example, you get tax write-offs for donating money. And the many, many different schemes in the US that allow you to park money that's
Mm.
supposedly for charity, and
Mm.
and take a long time to give it away, but you still get the tax write-off today. So all these tax things drive human behavior to put away money, right? And the US is the best at that. They give you so many different options and approvals and exemptions. You can do that. India doesn't give you as much, right? And so you'll find that in the US, there are a lot more philanthropists because they've used all these tax laws and everything to kind of do that. Whereas in India, you don't have that same approach.
Mm.
That's one difference. The second thing is in India, what we consider just doing as our duty, we don't consider that as philanthropy. Most families in India will have a cook or a driver or some servant, right?
Mm.
And you will naturally pay for that person's child's education. You never think of
Mm.
that as philanthropy. Or
Mm.
their son will get married or daughter gets married, you'll give them money. That's, you never think of it the same way. Whereas in the US, you would think of that as philanthropy, right? In India,
Mm.
that's just seva. So there are
Mm.
different styles of giving, or you would set up a hospital in your village. That's not, that's something you do in India, right? In the US, that would be philanthropy. In India, that's just seva. So there's a lot of nuances in this stuff, so you can't compare the two.
Mm.
But I would say the West is more driven by tax consequences,
Right.
and
Yeah.
India, it's already part of the system. We're used to giving.
So if we were to are there some, as you're talking to folks, as your conference is coming up in March as well, um, the conversation around philanthropy and where to effectively put money in India, what are some fields that you are seeing that are very underlooked right now that you feel need more push from a capital perspective?
Yeah. So again, the
Hmm.
Indian diaspora, just to give you a quick factoid, is 35 million strong. Okay.
Wow. Hmm.
35 million strong. US is the largest and most successful at 5 million. And then we have UAE and Australia and Canada and UK and Singapore and so forth. But a little known fact is that the 35 million, the annual income of this 35 million diaspora is $1.3 trillion a year. 1.3 trillion with a T.
Wow.
Okay. India's total GDP for 1.4 billion people is only 3 times that amount. So this diaspora overall, not every single person, is a pretty rich set of people, if you put it in that context.
Hmm.
So the question is, how can these people help India?
Hmm. Yeah.
Right? That is kind of one of the aspirations of Indiaspora that I started, was to cultivate the 35 million people to saying, do good things in your own country, but also look at your homeland and your ancestral land to see if you can help people over there, right?
Hmm.
So when the people in the diaspora think of that journey, they're very similar to any other ethnic community. Okay. You look at any ethnic community, even Americans in America, when they first started and reports were kept in the 1960s, for example, Americans in the US gave 2/3 of their money to churches.
Wow.
Just think of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Similarly, Indian Americans and Indian diaspora give a huge amount of their money to temples.
Hmm.
We estimate that in the US alone, in the past 25 years, and you won't believe this number, but believe it, Indian Americans in the past 25 years have given over $10 billion, B with a billion, to temples.
Wow.
Okay. But the good news is Americans who did this 50 years ago have lowered that as a percentage, increased the number, but lowered the percentage of giving to churches to 1/3.
Hmm.
So our role, kind of as a catalyst and a convener at Indiaspora, is for the Indian community to move quickly from temples, and they are, to education, because we all
Hmm.
believe in education. So we have now documented that Indian Americans in the past 20 years have given 3 billion to education in the US, universities in the US. Okay. Then we move to healthcare,
Hmm.
women's empowerment, and so on and so forth. And the tail end of it are causes like climate change. We don't pay much attention to. So our role as a catalyst and convener is to move the diaspora as quickly as
Hmm.
possible, from temple giving to causes that really help the country they live in
Hmm.
and India. That's the challenge we have.
So, how can people help in India itself? If you had to just talk to the people in India, how would you think people in India can help make that happen?
I think clearly articulating why we need money for climate change issues.
Hmm.
Why do we need money for girls' empowerment? Why, really articulating those causes. And, Geeta Gopinath, the former chief economist, just last
Hmm.
week in Davos, really got, uh, you know, into a controversy for saying a million plus Indians are dying of pollution every year. And she
I,
was, right?
I was about to say that if we have to convince any of the Indian diaspora to invest in pollution, they should just come to Delhi.
Exactly.
It's
And
like the
I'll be there
simplest way
soon,
to
and I'm
show them.
not looking forward to it.
Exactly. Like it is. I mean, I had three of my best friends from undergrad who are all American, all born in SF, come to India for the first time 3 weeks ago. And these guys, obviously had an idea of pollution being this or that, and they've never been in this environment. But my God, like you can feel the difference, and it's just that it's very hard. Something like pollution is just very hard to quantify, because you people say, yeah, it's like breathing 10 packs of cigarettes a day, but if you haven't really smoked like cigarettes, like you don't really understand what that even means. Like coming up with something that can be connected is a very hard part, it seems, for people outside to invest into these issues.
And this is where the next generation, your generation, is left with the problem. Okay.
Yes.
So you guys better learn how to fix it soon. That's all
Yeah.
I can say is, you
I
know,
I wanted to ask you about education as well, because when you say investing in education, is there something particularly within education that you see is needing to be invested in?
yeah, I think there's a lot of debate going on, even in the US,
Hmm.
where people are starting to question, is a 4 year degree worth it? Is there
Hmm.
an ROI on it that makes sense to me? Because if I'm taking a loan and I get a degree, do I get a job? When do I pay off the loan? So
Hmm.
I really think, that debate is going on to where skills are more important, it looks like, than just getting a 4 year degree, which
Hmm.
may end up with no job. So I think that thing will mean more and more people maybe go to, in the US, for example, a 2 year college, a community college, to
Hmm.
get some basic skills, and then maybe get into some vocational training that helps
Hmm.
them get a job, versus a 4 year degree where you end up getting nothing at the end of it. All you have is a big student loan. So I'm sure in
Hmm.
India as well, maybe that debate needs to happen in a sense, because we graduate in India 1 million people with a degree every year, right? And you got to find them jobs.
Yes.
A,
High
a month,
unemployment
I mean,
rates.
or a month, I
Yeah.
think it's a month, sorry. So you get 12 million people a year with a college degree, and they have to get jobs, and they're not getting
Hmm.
jobs. It's a well
Yes.
known fact.
Yes.
So then those 12 million have to start thinking, and their parents have to start thinking, I'm paying so much money for this. What is my child getting out of it? Right? So would they be better off learning how to be a plumber, a
Hmm.
welder, a carpenter? Can I pay for that kind of education? And
Hmm.
maybe they just do a basic education in skills, English, blah, 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 all that for a year, and then get into a particular trade. So this is a debate that needs to be had in
Hmm.
India more than just graduating 1 million people a month. I
If
don't
you
think that's
were
happening yet.
It's not, and a lot of people are talking about the unemployment gap right now, and how it needs to. I mean, basically, entrepreneurship at its core has to increase as well, so that it can create more opportunities at the same time. So that's like one solution that people are trying to figure out. How can we build more companies that are durable? And I wanted to ask you, if you were, I guess a professor, let's say, you were a professor in a college that is talking to these students, what are 1 to 3 skills that you think are like very important now for them to learn? And this doesn't have to be only hard skills. It could be whatever you soft, hard, whatever you feel is most
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. I would say right now, top of mind is AI.
Hmm.
So I think everybody needs to learn how to utilize AI for themselves. Okay. Uh, because you're just given a prompt. When you're just given a prompt, the answer is going to be as good as the question you ask.
Hmm.
So I don't think, even myself included, we are proficient in how do I frame the prompt? How do I interact with the LLM, ChatGPT or whatever, to get the best answer to my
Hmm.
questions? And how can I use it for all kinds of objectives? How do I get a job? To how do I take care of my health? To everything else, right? So I think that's a number one skill we all need to learn, is how do you use AI for yourself for good?
Hmm.
I think and I don't think any of us are close to learning the best practices of using AI.
Hmm. So the conversation right next to this skills thing is about mentorship, I feel, because that is a component that in general it feels it's very personal in some ways, finding a mentor that they relate with you, you relate with them, and you can ask them questions that maybe help guide some aspect and facet of your life. But at the same time, it's something that is so ad hoc in the way that we live. There's no structure, for example, right? Like there is no mentor as a service in school or college. It's something that you figure out yourself. What do you feel like is a great mentor-mentee relationship? What does that look like? And how can we enable more folks, young people, to have mentors in their lives?
No, that's a great. I was going to bring that up myself, but you beat me to it. So I would say one of the biggest things I lacked when I was young
Hmm.
was even thinking about, do I need a mentor and who is a mentor and any of that. I think
Hmm.
now more people are aware of it. So I think each person needs to kind of lay out what help do they need. I mean, first of all, you need to say, I need help, right?
Hmm.
And what kind of help do I need? And then articulate a set of objectives, values, and things that you would need in someone who can be your mentor,
Hmm.
right? And then you need to target within your network, who could be ideal mentors. It could be a family member, but it's better if it's not a family member. Look for someone outside, but you need to look for the right values, and you need to be accepting of that. That if someone gives you harsh feedback, that you're willing to
Hmm.
take it, because a lot of us have thin skins, and you go, "Oh my God, this person told me to do this and that," and so you need to really open up. It's almost like a mentor should also be a therapist, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Where you're able to really candidly share your angst and your worries and concerns and your type of advice you need. So you need to be able to open up yourself. That's on the mentee side. On the
Hmm.
mentor side, you need to do your homework and really go after the right types of people that you need. So I think there could be a new book written about this.
That's
I
what it
don't think
feels
it's
like.
all
Yeah.
formulated.
I feel like you'd write a great book. I have a feeling that if you wrote something around this topic, it would
I,
really be valuable and useful.
Yeah, you just gave me an idea of maybe doing a virtual session with people to discuss what a mentee needs to do, what a mentor should look like. And so you've given me, I think, a really good idea. And at Indiaspora, we're looking into this because we've now
Hmm.
started a group of young people like you who are
Hmm.
25 to 35 who live in the diaspora, who
Hmm.
are new job entrants or who need a network. And we're convening them in different cities. So we had a recent Indiaspora Next meeting in San Francisco and New York, and we plan to do this in Dubai and Singapore and Sydney and so on and so forth. So that's one thing. The second thing we're trying to create in the diaspora is something called the Experts Exchange. These are
Hmm.
people who are 65 and above, senior citizens, who have a great track record in life, who are now retired and want to give back. And they could make great mentors. So we are just developing this on a formal basis of mentees and mentors. But I
Hmm.
think a lot of this area is very subjective, very immature, and you've given me a good idea of starting the conversation on this topic. But yeah, there's a lot of work to be done in this space.
Um, this might be the topic that I probably think about the most, is this mentorship, because I feel that I saw the difference in my own life when I had even one person that was around me, that was giving their opinion, and that was something that I really respected. I think it can change people's life. Like, you're one. I always say that you're one introduction away from changing your life in some ways, and I think community forums are very powerful that way. Like things that you are doing, once young person meets someone that they have an amazing conversation with, and the next thing you know, they're working with them on something, and they found something that like they can really pour their energy into,
Yeah.
and like help impact. So I feel it's a huge potential here.
I'll let you in on a secret. I still have a
Okay.
mentor. And you'd go,
Tell me more.
why the hell does MR need a mentor? I have a
Hmm.
mentor. I visit with him every 6 to 12 months,
Hmm.
and he's my harshest critic. I mean, he nails me on I give him an update and he just nails me on things he thinks I should improve and gives me harsh feedback. I love it because you know what? You need to know the truth. You don't want people sugarcoating and saying, "Hey, you're doing great. Keep it up." I think you need some of that, but a lot of it is going to be fix that. Did you do this? Last time you told me you're going to do this. Did you do it? You need to hold my feet to the fire. So I just had my session a month ago. It was very uncomfortable session for me, but I came out of it much stronger. And you'd go, why the hell
Hmm.
does this guy need a mentor? I still have one.
Why do you think that people ask that question? Why does this guy still need a mentor?
Because they think, hey, I'm older, I'm experienced, and stuff like that. But I still need help. I mean, no one ever is grown to a point where they don't need any improvement. And you do need to
Mhm.
share your angst and your worries, and you can't go to anybody because most people at my age, if I go to other people, they say how great I am, right? No one's going to give me personal criticism saying you talk too much or have you said you would do this a year ago, you still haven't done it. What the hell is wrong? Who's going to tell me that? Nobody.
Hmm.
Maybe my wife and my kids about it, but they don't know everything I'm doing. I mean, who can be honest with you? Just think of that. Nobody can be honest with me.
Do you think you can have a mentor younger than you?
Boy, no, my mentor is older than me. All my mentors have been older than me. I've never thought of that, but that's a good thing to ask. I It could be, but I think what I value in someone older than me is they've taken all the hits.
Right,
they're,
right,
they've
right.
spent 10 years, they're 10 years older than me. They have 10 more years of beatings and failures and success, and they can bring
Hmm.
that to the table.
Hmm. There was a
So,
poll done. There was a research done on this on this topic on how people view mentorship, and typically there's the core assumption we have of mentorship is this person is always older than us. Like that was
yeah,
like 85 or 90% of people truly believe that. At the same time, I wonder sometimes, there's some aspects of my life that I know people younger than me are way better than me at that I could learn. For example, a simple example, someone might be way fitter than me and they're much younger than me and they take care of their body and stuff. And I would love to learn from them on what has worked for them versus just for the sake of finding someone fitter that's older. Of course, that's admirable, but why not just learn from someone like that? So it's made me wonder how much age has
yeah.
to do with that learning.
I would argue that the older person would have gone through that, let's say, workout regime and gotten hurt and been struggling to get back on
Yeah.
track. So you'd learn all that type of stuff. Whereas from the young kid, younger than you, he hasn't been through that journey of trying too hard and getting hurt and taking 3 months off and coming back because he bounces back pretty quickly. Whereas an older person might take more time and say, hey, look out for this or look out for that. So I would definitely go in the camp of experience matters in a mentor over time.
There's over time. There's this quote, I forget who said it. I think it was Charlie Munger who said that some people live 1 year of experience 10 times over, and
Yeah.
some people live 10 years of experience where they like actively are consciously changing things. And I also add that in when I'm thinking about the experience side of it. Sometimes I feel like it is very true that I come across people that um like are zombieing in some ways into life, and like they've spent the last 20 years doing something, but nothing is retained almost because it's become this robotic, very repetitive thing. And I wonder if that just because you've spent time in something automatically equates to experience in it, or does that require some level of reflection, looking at what you are doing and how you're changing things.
Yeah, you should, man. I mean, there's no status quo. You always got to learn. I mean, and you are
Yeah.
right. We get set in our ways and we do the same thing over and over. And that's why I think a mentor helps also, right? Because if
Hmm.
you go and share this, he or she's going to point out and say, "Hey, you've been doing the same thing for 3 years. What the heck did you
Yeah.
get out of it?" and stuff,
mm,
right? This is
mm,
something, a conversation with a mentor will be very helpful. So I really think,
mm.
one of the things I'm taking away from our conversation is I think at Indiaspora, we'll probably try to have this general, larger conversation on who's a mentor, who's a mentee, how do they prepare for their roles, and what happens, and best practices coming out of it. I think
I
there've been some books written, but not enough conversation yet.
I would love to be involved in that, to be honest, and we can talk about that later. I would also want to ask you how you met your mentor.
Uh, he was a friend. My
Mm,
So my first mentor was an accidental mentor. A lot of things in life, my life, I've never planned has happened by accident. How I accidentally came to Silicon Valley, how I became a
mm,
philanthropist accidentally. Same thing with mentor. One of my bosses at my second company kind of default became my mentor. I didn't even realize it till later,
wow.
And then that's when I started saying, after that mentorship ended, should I get somebody else? Right.
Mm,
So in my case, it was accidental. So I tell people that, and the mentor I have now was someone actually who came to me for help
mm,
initially, but then he was older than me, but he became so much more successful. The
mm.
thing flipped to me helping him to him helping me. Yeah.
You helped him well then, it seems like.
I helped him with his company and monetarily, but he's helping me with guidance, which is can't be monetized.
Yeah. Wow. Last question I want to ask you is about how, since you've been out of India and you've also now have a family, you also are with someone that is not Indian, like your wife is
Yeah,
half or Greek, American. I wanted to ask you how that has changed your idea of what you identify with or who you identify with. Has that
yeah,
changed the idea of like how Indian you feel in some ways, or how closer you feel to that particular identity versus something else?
yeah. I identify as an Indian American, but really it's American first. I've lived most of my life in the US. So, and I have a US passport. So I identify as an American with the Indian hyphenated, approach. So I haven't changed much. My kids, on the other hand, have more than one identity, right? They're kind of like a dual identity, but they've visited India many times. They've lived in India and so forth. So they've taken, I think, the best of what Indian culture has to offer. They've taken the best of Greek culture, So, but they have a different identity. They're American first, and then
Hmm.
they're Indian and Greek as part of that identity. But in terms of, my thing is, my most of my family lives in India, so I'm still very connected. I visit India 3 or 4 times a year, so I keep abreast of all the latest and greatest, good and bad, that happens in India. So, so I'm got my foot in two places still, in some sense.
What's something beyond, and you've talked about risk taking being, obviously very limited risk taking previously in India, maybe it's improved now. Is there beyond risk taking something else that you feel India as a culture could change about itself?
Yeah, I think being open, learning more from the world, uh, and risk taking. I'm a risk taker all my life. So for me, my family and everyone thinks, "Why did you do that?" I'm like, "That's who I am." Uh, and many more people are cautious. They're conservative. So maybe I'm on the extreme on that scale, right? Conservative to risk taking. I'm maybe at the off the charts, but I'm saying you got to be somewhere, somewhere in the middle. But that's something I think more Indians need to do is, like you said, entrepreneurship equals risk taking. Okay. There's no
Mm.
two ways about it. You could fail 90%, 99% of the time, you bounce back and you go do it again. So that's something Indians need to build into their psyche and their DNA. But I have one last thing for you, since your audience tends to be younger, skewed to the younger age, is just think of yourself. My parents, their life expectancy was 60, 70 years old. My generation, the life expectancy is 80 years. In your generation, life expectancy is over 100. So pace yourself in your life, okay? You don't need to get a degree by 21. You don't need to get a job by 22. You don't need to get married by 24. You don't need to have kids by 26. You don't need to hustle with that speed. And a lot of parents who listen to me will think it's heresy, okay? But I'm directly reaching out to young people and saying, think of your life as a 100-year journey. So take time with each phase of your life. Okay, there's a learning phase, taking risk, accumulating knowledge. Take time to do all that stuff. You can still get a job. Hopefully, you're in a financial situation where you don't immediately have the pressure to get a job. But if you can't, take time off. Do backpacking like I did, or work in an NGO, or do whatever you want, and come back, and then you get married. You don't need to get married 24. Maybe you get married 28 or 30. Maybe you don't have kids at 30. You have kids at 32 or 34. You still will have 60, 70, 80 years of your life to lead. So think of that trajectory and the length and the duration. And there's no urgency to do everything by age 30. And then you go, what else do I do? Okay. So that's my parting advice for your listeners, is map out your 100-year journey. This is crazy when I'm telling you, you're like 25 years old and you're like, hey, plan next 75 years of my life, man. You're like, what the heck are you telling me to do? But that's reality today.
Hmm.
You guys will live for 100 years, man. And what are you going to do? How are you going to plan all of it? So do some planning. All of you do some planning. Project out a 100-year timeline and say, this is where I want to do this. This is where I want, just at least in your mind, get that long-term thinking. And then you do what you want.
I could not have said anything beyond after this. This is a great reminder, honestly, for everyone and for myself mostly. Thank you so much once again for
Anyway,
being so
for
gracious with your time.
for your listeners, hit me up on LinkedIn. I have pretty active life on LinkedIn. Go to Indiaspora as well and sign up for our newsletter. There's all kinds of information. But yeah, keep in touch.
Most definitely. I'll link that also in the videos. So once again, MR, so honestly, super grateful that we got connected. Thank you to Krish for making that connection. And I appreciate you.